Okay. Hello, everybody, and then welcome. This is Tony Chio from Renewable in Africa. So we're starting a little bit late, and I'm sure you will notice that I have a little bit of a hoarse voice, but it doesn't matter because I can still talk to you. And also because actually, today is a special day for me, and it's a special day. Why? Because I'm just celebrating as well my wedding anniversary. Oh yes, 12 years. And yeah, it was interesting. And obviously, if you haven't done it yet, so I would like you to make sure that you subscribe to our channel, so you can subscribe to the YouTube, to the Facebook, to the to the Twitter, or LinkedIn, right? You can do all of that, and it's quite interesting because yesterday I was having some friends coming to my house, and as we were discussing about obviously many topics, usually that happen, friends come to your house, you're talking about many things. Yeah, you sort of rebuilding the world. And my friend was asking me a very interesting question. She was like, at the moment, I could see so these many conflict that are coming from the fact that they are always connected to energy sources, right? And that's not really fair. And some countries or areas seems to be I would say more gifted than others, right? So they have a lot more resources than others, a lot more affluent than others. So why is that so? Okay. And it was quite an interesting question. And we discussed about that. And it got me thinking, yeah, about uh what can we do? Can we believe do we believe that, for example, if we were to change the current energy system right now, we will actually limit the amount of conflict that we see around the world. And this is why I had this question for you. So I want to know whether you believe that changing from fossil fuel to renewable energy efficiency is going to be a powerful tool, a powerful weapon to achieve peace in the world, right? That's the topic that we're going to discuss today. And if you just arrived, you want to know that my name is Tony Tio from Renewables in Africa. And the whole idea of this channel is to give you all the information you need to simplify the sector for you so that if you're an investor, so you can invest into the sector, having all the right information you need. If you're a professional, you're looking to jump into the industry because you're coming from somewhere else, also here, you find all the answer that you need. Or maybe if you also a business, you're looking for solutions, I definitely believe that you can find some element of responses in the question that you're asking yourself. And I'll also invite you, make sure that you watch all the videos that we have on our channel. And I'm sure you're going to be learning a lot because obviously we have a lot of video covering a lot of topics, right? And every week, 2:30 GMT time, I'm coming online. I was excited to engage with you to give you more information. Now, so make sure that, as I say, if you haven't done so, you want to make sure that you connect with us. It looks like I already have a comment. So let me check. That's very early. Oh, wow. I love it. Hello, for people watching us. So brilliant to be here with you. So let's come back into the topic of today, which is energy efficiency and renewable energy, the best weapon for peace today. Yeah. I always like to set up a context, right? So, and I started doing that by giving you the informing you as to where this topic is coming from, where I had the idea of having this topic conversation with you. And before I deep dive into the answer or giving you my opinion of it or discussing with you, I thought I want to share, as usual, a couple of slides so you can see why I was talking about that. Because it happened that, let me just have the slide shown right now. Okay, 1 second, guys. I'm doing it. I'm sharing my screen. Excellent. So you have the slide there. So that's the topic of today, as you can see. So essentially, uh, energy resources have in the past been linked to some of the recent struggle or past struggle that we have seen. And what I would do, I will cover some of them that you certainly will recognize, and show you how the connection is coming is coming about. Because what happened is we know that oil and gas, fossil fuel, especially oil and gas, coal as well, but especially oil and gas, are one of the most, I would say, most valuable commodities, resources here in the planet. So whoever owns, a good proportion of it has like a disproportionate influence on the world stage, right? And that's what we see. And that's what, if you understand that now, that's why you can see that countries like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, they could be relatively small, right, or a small population on the surface of the planet, but clearly the level of interest is quite huge because of the reserve, the oil and gas reserve that they have. That's very interesting. And because of that, right, in like many, it's not just Saudi Arabia and Qatar. That's just an example I've given. But across the world, you have different energy export nation, right? And usually those guys would tend to be wealthy. And if you look at inside those nations, sometimes you've seen there have been a lot of conflict. And sometimes the conflict doesn't seem to be related to their energy results, but I can tell you it definitely plays a part. So, for example, if I'm talking about the Gulf War, right? The initial war was the Iran-Iraq and also the Gulf War. Other motives were actually pushed forward to explain why those war happened, right? I don't want to dive into the politics of it, but all I can say definitely is, so as those war was going forward, what we noticed actually is whoever was controlling the oil field, at least we can agree on that, had enough revenue, right, to fund their effort, to fund their war. They became very, very important, right? So basically, all of a sudden, you will see, the protection that was around those energy resources was very, very high because you know that to mount a resistance, to mount an attack, whatever you want, you need money, right? And if you have a valuable commodity, valuable resource, you can definitely get money out of it. And definitely, so those were clearly uh, were being, I would say, funded by those oil field reserve. Very, very important. So I can talk about another one. So Syria, same thing. So we all know the Bashar al-Assad regime. Basically, again, I'm not here to tell you who is wrong, who is right. I can just look at some of the facts to show you how connected it was to energy. So Syria has never been a major oil producer. However, Syria has enough resource, right, to clearly provide enough revenue to the government at the time. And you can definitely understand that the government at the time will be using that again, as I mentioned, to be able to prepare and then and build a solid army around it. And it became a big area of interest. And because you have that, you're also able to, let's say, attract some partners that will be willing to defend you, providing that you can share some of the revenue with them, right? So that's what very much what happened in Syria. 2011 started and it's still ongoing. Unfortunately, obviously, I know at the moment the focus tends to be on the newest war, and we tend to have forgotten whatever has happened elsewhere. But they're still going on, right? That's an example. Another example was the Sudanese civil war. So let me just talk about that very briefly. So Sudan, big country. I'm talking about the area in the continent. So now we know that there is two countries now: the Sudan or North Sudan, you would call it now, or South Sudan, right? What happened is the oil field, right, and the gas are in the south essentially. So this region always wanted to split, right? Before the discovery was were made, so the North would not care too much. Obviously, the origin of the war is something different. Let me just state that. But the fact that later on there was the discovery of oil field, all of a sudden it attracted some interest from the government from the North, and you can imagine as well some infighting that were there. Obviously, with what happened, with their situation, both countries managed to have an agreement and to have both countries split into two. However, those all failed from the south. In order for them to find international market, has to be transited to the north, right? As you can imagine, that then give back again a certain level of influence that the North has to the South. South has the resource. The North has the infrastructure to export it, to transport it, right? And you can imagine again some conflict going there. And this is one of the things that has been fueling, I would say, the tension in the country. Again, you see, having those resources tend to be as well a big part of the conflict. Another one. So Boko Haram, which is in Nigeria and in Cameroon. Yeah, same thing. What's happening? So you have government in both those countries. So tend to have neglected a little bit, the population up north, and because those populations tend to be left for themselves by themselves. So obviously nature hates voids. What happened? You have some group over there that obviously will get created. Because Boko Haram, obviously, they have different objectives. The objective, obviously, I guess, to install is to extend, I would say, Islamic government, basically, and the rest of the country will not see that this way, and it's easier for these guys to get some support in those regions because the population in those places felt left behind. Why did they feel left behind? Simply because both those countries have tremendous amount of resources. However, it is not well distributed enough, right? And because of that, it just happened that the revenue will end up in the pocket of the few, and many people are left, on their own, especially in the north. And because they left in the north, so it's very easy for these people to be, I would say, charmed, you know, by people like Boko Haram. That's an example. That's another example. So South China Sea, we don't know about that, but we hear that from time to time. What happened if you look at the East China and the South China Sea, so those regions, I think recently there's been discovered that again there was a large reserve of oil, but also in gas, and that is creating some tension between China and some of the neighbor in the region. Again, as you can see, all those struggles. So what we're seeing is it's kind of the same pattern. So that means the region or country that have enormous resources tend to exert an huge amount of power over the world, right? And because they have that huge amount of power, you can imagine that will generate all sorts of conflict that you can see. And this is because these are the most valuable commodities in the market now, fossil fuel. Now, if I remove that, I stop that with now, yeah? So let me just come back, yeah? And then the question becomes, are we then saying that if we move away from this fossil fuel, if we go to renewables, so and energy efficiency, all of a sudden we're gonna see those struggle, stopping. Well, to some extent, we would say so. Moving away from a system, at least temporarily, yeah, that will sort of bring back some sort of balance, in the sense that those who were all powerful because the old system or the current system only give place, right, to fossil fuel as the most valuable commodities, hence has developed a number of, let's say, private group or specific group, small group of people that can only take advantage of those resources while they manage those resources. All of a sudden, they will be left out of power because the center of interest would have shifted to a new commodity. And the time for that new commodity to build as well, yeah, the group of interest. So at least that period of time, that transition period, so can be, I would say, it can be good to build peace in between. So in that sense, I would say, yeah, shifting away could be an element of peace. Of peace, just because, like I said, you're taking away power, so you're removing the resources, you're moving the center of interest. All of a sudden, whoever has oil and gas, it doesn't have that much impact anymore, simply because the system has moved to something else. So to that extent, I can say it is possible. However, if you also listen carefully to what I've said that people that are resource rich, hence exporting, lots of those resources, they have an let's say disproportionate influence into the rest of the world. Then if we move into renewable energy, or when you move into renewable energy efficiency, so we should have been naive to think that automatically it's going to bring peace, right? As I said, temporarily speaking, because it sort of disturb the current system. Yes, we could see that peace. But as we go forward, if we don't make sure that the system is properly balanced, right, we may end up later on in the same kind of scenario whereby whoever owns, I don't know, let's say the biggest amount of battery. For example, let me give you an example. So we now all advocating to move to a lot more EVs, right? To decarbonize the transport sector. So those EVs works with batteries. As long as the batteries are still mainly coming from lithium, so you need to understand who owns the most lithium, the most lithium in the world, right? And that is GRC Congo. You can imagine that means as well. So the power, the transport sector, if it becomes too much reliant on lithium battery, they will make sure that they have a specific control over those resources in DRC Congo. Yeah. And you could see how that can again create some disruption in just region. So this is what I'm saying. Yes, on temporary basis, we could see the current system being disrupted. But if we go and just replicate the same, but with a new energy source, we're really not going to change anything. Definitely not, right? So we actually all want to see a lot more renewable energy sources, a lot more energy efficiency, because clearly that's going to help decarbonize the planet for all of us. All of us going to benefit, all of us going to enjoy it. However, in terms of the influence, if that influence is only left under the hands of few people and not properly distributed and obviously balanced properly, we're most likely going to end up there, because many of those places. And the funny thing is, this is what I was actually discussing with my friend also yesterday. So what we observe is actually is all depend as well on whatever government you have in place. All I'm trying to say is actually the resource per se. The resource is not a bad thing. It's the person who actually manage that resource who is actually a little bit of the danger there. Because if that person, as I say, it's a good leader, have you the best interest of their people, oh, most of the time they will have the best interest of at least some groups. But like I say, if they're minded to make sure that they have a system that is fair for the large majority of people, across the globe, then that's fine. But when you have corrupt leaders coming on top of these countries, just looking to help themselves as opposed to help their people, this is also where you can see some unbalanced unbalanced action. So this is what I would say. So yes, renewable energy and energy efficiency, I would say on a temporary basis, are a weapon, an element, tool for peace. Long-term basis, if it's not proper balance, we're simply just going to reproduce the current system. So let me just leave it there, right? I know I can see already I have 2 comments. So I'm just going to make sure I'm going to respond to that. But before I respond to that, let me just remind you, if you haven't done it yet, it's time to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, but also on LinkedIn, right? And if you only joined one of our platform, just go and sign up to all of them as well, please. We need you to support us. And I also need you to send your comment, to send your question. So I could see that I have a couple of comments here. Let me just jump into that and respond, because I like to make sure that I can pick up some questions. So let me show the first one. Okay. And this is Martin. Martin is saying, I think the revenue stream depends on the load fraction taken up by renewable energy source. There is need to carefully redesign the network that carry critical load in order to determine an optimum storage that will not consider the economy. Okay, so I'm not sure I understand that. So depend on the load fraction taken up by renewable energy. Okay. The network that carry critical load not determined. Okay. Let me look at the second point. The second point, Martin, Energy efficient conservation have been adopted as a baseline of making an economic system. However, activity perfectly require careful financial technological replacement. I think, Martin. But first of all, thank you for your contribution. Right. So I absolutely appreciate it. I always like when people will comment, and share, give me their feedback. So to some extent, yes, I think we both of us not disagreeing here. So I agree with you. So it would take time to reorganize the whole system. That's for sure, and there needs a contribution of everybody. The financial, technological, as you mentioned, for replacement plan. So absolutely, and then we need to look at all those challenges. But more importantly, I would say it's the mindset that will also, I would say, inhabit the people that are in position of power, right? Because as I say, if they're only led by greed, but not by the desire to serve the largest number of people, the fairest way possible, we're gonna end up in those situations whereby you only have a few people who wants to take advantage of the benefit, right, of the system. Because as long as, because the system we in, we all agree, right? So you most of the time need money to live your life, right? And we live. That's the other thing that I usually like to remind people. We live in an energy centric world, right? Whereby energy is leading the way we are living our life. Without energy, there's not much that we can achieve. And this energy, then it depends, start depending on what sources it produces the biggest amount of energy that people need to carry on with their life, right? At the moment, we are saying it's fossil fuel. Tomorrow, we say it's going to be clean energy, renewable energy, energy efficiency, right? But what I'm saying is okay, that is fine. We're going to get the energy, we're going to use the energy. But now, the people that are in position of power and control the way this energy circulate, the way the revenue of this energy is being used, if those people are not, I would say, um, honest people, honest, and if they're not a bit fair, we're going to end up in a system whereby we have a very bad use of those revenue only in the hand of a few. Is it going to create those imbalances? So let me just look at Mario. By the way, Mario, I saw not long ago that you were very keen to participate in the conversation. I love it. So the question is, what are the biggest bottleneck from your point of view to leverage more? Oh, good question. More local resources like lithium for battery to support hybrid microgrid. What possible scenario with biggest impact? That's a very interesting question. Okay, to leverage local resources like lithium to support hybrid microgrid. So I think for me, the big okay, if I look at the results like lithium for batteries, right? So to leverage that locally and to use that locally, a little bit like also we have for fossil fuel, yeah, oil and gas, is the fact that locally speaking, because if you take it to like DRC Congo, right? And it's the same thing you have, for example, for Nigeria, you have from maybe Algeria to some extent. Many of these countries will depend only on the raw material that they have. They extract it, they export it. They do not transform it, right? There's no manufacturing, you know, transformations infrastructure in this country, right, to properly benefit from those raw material. And for me, that's one of the biggest bottleneck. The fact that there isn't any manufacturing infrastructure that allow people to properly locally to take advantage of that. And why is that not uh, manufacturing infrastructure in this country? Well, I believe the reason could be multiple, but let me just mention a couple. It's probably the fact that the regulation, maybe from those successive government, it's not how can I say that doesn't provide enough incentive for people to maybe invest into infrastructure on the long term, right? Because those infrastructure usually manufacturing infrastructure, well, I think that those are big heavy bits, and you need a certain amount of money, and it takes a certain amount of time to make it happen. If I'm an investor, I'm going to invest into that. Most likely I'm going to be recouping my money on a long-term basis, right? So that means I need to have a visibility over the next minimum 5 years, 10 years, right? So that means you're talking about dealing with more than one government at a time. So if the country really has a master plan, has a vision that it carries, and it can assure to those investors that, on the long term, their investment is safe and they can recoup their money, then they will have better incentive to do it, right? So definitely have the regulation in place that encourage those foreign, let's say local investment, foreign investment to develop some infrastructure is definitely one bottleneck. Another bottleneck is the fact that you also don't have enough technical skills in these countries because as well they've not been developed. Most of the time, people will just do the labor. Even that is it's not enough. If you don't have the technical skills, okay, even if I build such a facility, it means I don't have the right people that can help me to operate those facilities. I end up having to bring people from abroad. The problem is you bring people from abroad. This is just to come home for a period of time and then they leave. But it doesn't really create a proper industry locally, right? And that's kind of the issue that I can see for people to have hybrid microgrid. That's just a couple of examples. I'm sure there are many other that we could see. Okay, the second part was we were talking about what are possible scenarios with biggest impact. So possible scenarios, I think the in what I say, you can see some element of responses in the sense that uh, 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 for me, the key needs to be a proper vision as to where the country wants to go. And the key thing for me is, and I was discussing that as well with a friend yesterday. I was saying I personally will strongly encourage each country to develop the resource that they have in abundance in their country, right? Providing those resources are, I would say, clean enough. Because obviously, unfortunately, we've abused a little bit of coal. Yeah, we've abused a little bit of oil and gas, and we know they are polluting, right? So that we need to minimize. But obviously, some countries just can cut down automatically oil and gas. That will not be fair as well for them. There needs to be obviously a proper plan to mitigate that. But ultimately, it's about even if you say you're moving into renewable, right? Renewables energy. So renewables energy, as I say, they made multiple sources. So some will have lots of solar, some will have lots of wind, some will have a bit of all of that. So you want to tap into the industry that you have in abundance in your country. This is also how you're protecting yourself, right? You're providing some element of energy security. So that's one very good scenarios, I would say. So what am I saying here? I'm saying here is if you want to develop hybrid microgrid, for example, and you happen to need batteries, if you don't have enough lithium, the idea is what is the second best material that I could use that I have here in the country that could be useful? That's one thing that somebody could be looking at, so that you don't become too much dependent on others. Don't get me wrong, we're always going to need exchanges, trade between different countries, but it's a way as well see how you can protect yourself. So let me see. Oh, I agree with the presenter, that's Martin, regarding the influence of politics regarding renewable energy penetration. We have economies where the tariff are not a function of the true costs of electricity. But it's important to, yeah, okay, allow, okay. So am I able to see the last bit of the answer? It's important to that allows people to access the product at the most realistic cost, such as renewable energy penetration measure based on the true cost. Yes. So you're absolutely right, Martin. So this is something that we know as well. So a number of utilities, for example, in the African continent, don't have tariffs that are reflective on the cost of those or on the true cost of the operation, right? And this is bringing obviously an imbalance. And the reason it's done this way is because politics and the government know all too well how important it is to keep the cost of energy manageable for the citizen. I can understand that, or I can understand them to some extent. So they will keep those costs artificially low. The concern is that because they're artificially low, those utility, first of all, like I say, even if they were able to recover 100% of the revenue from the people, will still not be able to cover the cost of their operation. And on top of that, as you can imagine, nobody has a system where you recover 100% of the revenue, right, from your customers. So clearly they have less than that. Does that mean they even have lower revenue? Does that mean even the gap, cost, compared to that, the revenue that they're getting is even bigger? And because they have that, they can't carry out the upgrade action that is needed to refurbish the grid. They can extend the coverage of the grid and so on and so forth. So we get into sort of a vicious circle. That's why one of the questions that I have for Mario, where he was talking about small community decentralized, is also another good way to look at the future, right? Whereby we still definitely need to have national grids, but obviously some new places it becomes very expensive for those grids to extend the coverage to those customers. This is probably where you want to be using microgrid and see how useful they are. Let me just pick up. So Mario is saying a pity because manufacturing will drive knowledge and yeah, hope this bottleneck will overcome, especially seeing the development of Russia. Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mario. So lithium, it's I would say one of the dominant technologies in terms of storage, battery storage. But the good thing is because of the way we are positioned, we're talking to many partners, and I know that there are a lot of other technologies for batteries that are at play at the moment, and I'm sure in the next few years we're going to see some good one coming forward. So, because lithium definitely good, helpful, but it also has its drawbacks. So, others as well will be able to emerge. So as usual, we're most likely going to end up with, I would say, two or three, let's say, dominant technology that will that will gain the market and will reach there's a word, do I see my mind? But what I'm trying to say, you have to have a minimum scale, right, in order for the product to become economically viable for everybody. But yes, manufacturing for me is key. You will really need a lot of manufacturing. Yeah, I can give you a quick example about that. If you look at the wind energy sector for in North Africa, for example, right? Many people don't know that, but I know the wind industry in Africa is still small compared to the global scale. However, in the context of Africa, South Africa clearly is the major player, but the industry really started in 1980s in Egypt, right? And when Egypt started developing this sector, what they did is making sure that they will develop the local supply chain. And by developing the local supply chain, you can give skills to people. You can also create expertise there, right? And ultimately, it means that this is also how you reduce the cost of your production. And if you reduce the cost of your production like that, you end up having later on product that are acceptable in terms of the prices on the market. So manufacturing is very key. And once you have it now, you can use those products for your own market, but you can export it. Yeah. And you become what I call a player, not just a market. Yeah. So manufacturing absolutely is key. So I think that was excellent. Usually, I tend to keep those conversations for 20 minutes to half an hour. The last, the last two time including today, there has been a number of reactions, which I love. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And as a result of that, so I'm having longer sessions. But listen, I love it. I enjoy it. So thank you very much for being part of the conversation. By all means, all I'm saying, I'm not saying that's the truth. Definitely not. It's my opinion. I always like to engage with people like yourself and get some new opinion, learn as well, and just participate to collaborating. So I'm hoping that you've enjoyed today. So we are renewables in Africa. So we are raising awareness about renewable energy not only in African countries but also across the world. We like to engage with every people that feels or seem concerned by the topic, whether you are in the industry or not. Last week, a couple of weeks, for example, we did a seminar on sustainability and business, right? Sustainable business seminar. We've done it. and it was very well attended. We're going to have a new one coming shortly. So what you want to do to make sure that you stay connected and you don't miss the next webinar, seminar, workshop that we do, you want to make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Definitely subscribe to our channel, right? To a YouTube channel, to a LinkedIn channel, to a Facebook channel, to a Twitter channel, right? And if you have questions, just reach out to us. You can also reach out to me personally on my LinkedIn account, and I will definitely will respond to you. Yeah. So let me just last comment say good start, good success to you. I appreciate that, Mario. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a good start because we've been starting for a little while now, but thank you very much. We love it. I appreciate that. So, gentlemen, and ladies, if there's any ladies, I think it was a pleasure as usual to talk to you. Right? I know I have my voice a little bit hoarse, but that's okay. I'm just gonna go back to my family, to my wife, especially because this is my wedding anniversary today, and I'm looking forward to talk to you definitely next week again, 2:30 GMT time. What's gonna be the topic? I don't know yet, but maybe you can suggest one topic for me, and I'd be very happy to develop it with you. Is it okay? Excellent. So let me just make sure there's no more comments. Yeah, no, I think that's about it. Okay, so thank you very much for your contributions, for your attendance, and then as I usually say, may the sun be with you. And ngepelo. Ngepelo means thank you in my own language. Guys, appreciate you. Take care.